Are you a potential home buyer? Has your offer for a house just been accepted? And then now are you wondering what about that roof that's on that house? What should you do? Today we'll be joined with Daniel Koren with Branson Roof Co to give us a little of the tips and tricks on the insight from a roofer's perspective of what to be watching for. From a couple of stories about transactions up into maybe even potentially helping you get that roof replaced on that house before you even buy it. Good day. Thank you for joining us here on Whiskey Real Estate Talk with Drew. Today we are joined with Daniel Koren with Springfield Branson Roof Co, and he's going to give us a little bit of insight about what a potential buyer or what a buyer under contract should be doing in regards to the roof of the future home that they're looking at. But first, Daniel, I would like you to introduce yourself to everybody who you are.
Well, I'm Daniel Koren and live with my wife and our many kids in Branson, Missouri, and love helping people out with their homes and have about 25 years of roofing experience. So we're about to figure this thing out. But one of the things we've run into with real estate is the buyer really needs to be aware of the roof condition when they're buying. And I know that it's probably not the most exciting thing to think about, but buyers have so many other things. How big's the backyard? How nice is the kitchen? Whatever. But something down the road you're going to really wish you had looked at is the condition of that roof. So that's why we offer free inspections. We'll get up there and take a look at it for you. And even if you order a home inspection, a lot of times that's not very thorough on everything. That might be more about wiring and what the underside of the home looks like.
General inspection of the property. They're not a roofer that knows, hey, let's look for this specific things on roofs.
Right. So with us, you can have a licensed roofer look at that and give you a written clean bill of health that your insurance and your mortgage lender might want to know about. Hey, this roof's got another 10, 20 years to it. That'd be great news for them and you. Or if we get up there and we find that it's in terrible shape, well, you want to know that too. And negotiate that with the seller saying, hey, I wasn't looking to buy a roof, just a house. What can you do here? And, we could present some options and help them out. I mean, several different options that could go down. But one thing that we find oftentimes, especially in this part of the world where we have hail and wind, I mean, we've got some creative weather out here. The chances of there being a claim on that roof are always exciting. If you're the buyer and we look at that roof and there is damage, well, now it's not, oh, come on, I'm going to have to, it's an old roof. You might have to argue with the buyer, or as the buyer, you might have to argue with the seller that let's split the price on this and try and convince them to spend some money on this project. If the insurance is going to pay for it, the damage is there, and the seller has qualified insurance, then most or all of that roof's going to get replaced on the insurance company's dime, and everybody wins. To me, it's the win-win-win in real estate is if we can help a prospective buyer or an under contract buyer get a roof replaced on their house,
before they take ownership,
right, and the seller isn't out much or anything, and the realtor looks like the good guy because he brought us to the table. That's always fun because they say, hey, here's somebody we use a lot, and this is where their credentials are, not just in replacing the roofs, but many times working with the insurance companies and helping everybody have a very positive experience. So in that case, we would be bridging both sides. With a melting ice cube because closing date's coming up.
So
we're
definitive timeline to work in.
Yeah, so that's why we enjoy building relationships with insurance adjusters, and we have adjusters who will check us because they know what we send them, and they'll say, hey, what's the damage like up there? I'll say, hey, here's a full deck of photos, take a look at that, and some of them will take those photos and make their report based on that. Sometimes we'll send them all the measurements and everything, and they know that we're not just making anything up or we've never cheated the system. And a lot of times that claim will be written within 2 days, and boom, that check's in the mail, we get the roof on, they get the second check coming, and everybody gets to closing on time. Sometimes that second check is in the mail, and this is probably more of a warning for the seller. Sometimes that second check is in the mail, and they're going to have to close, and that bill gets paid out of closing, and then the insurance reimbursement's right there right afterwards. But it's a deal. But I guess the thing to say is
communication will work through that. Like knowing timelines on both sides of the equation, you'll know where you are, and if you're going to run over a day or two, the seller can be informed, hey, this is where we are, and this is the order of things are going to happen. You're still going to get your money back. Everything's fine.
Once all the dust settles, the buyer's got a brand new roof. That's the biggest thing. And the insurance process is kind of interesting to navigate. That's why we put out this book called The Calm After the Storm, to try and help people understand where you are in the claim process and how we help you through it. And real estate transactions add a different dynamic to it, but there's just this process what goes through it. So the other thing is, as a buyer, I would want to know, what does that insurance claim say? Because this is a home you're going to own. And if that insurance company says, hey, we'll replace the roof and the gutters and the siding and the garage door and the window wraps and window screens and all kinds of these other things, I want to know that if I'm going to own this place.
And you want to know that it got changed too.
Yeah, because, and so here's a story that just motivates me, I guess. Kind of a sad story, but this realtor had sent us to help out a customer who had been denied by their insurance company. Insurance says, we'll pay $6,000 to do repairs on this roof. Well, we get up there, the whole thing is just devastated. Huge house, beautiful neighborhood.
Probably needed a roof.
Yeah, and so we worked with that insurance company for a few months until they finally said, okay, we're sending somebody back out. We took videos, we took pictures, we sent samples, lab reports, whatever we had to do. And then they came out and they bought everything. Okay, we're paying for this, paying for this, paying for this. There was interior damage, all of that. Then we turned around to the seller and said, all right, this is great. He goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take the $16,000 they sent me up front, I'm going to put that in my pocket and walk away. And we're like, why?
Why would you not be fixing that?
Yeah, why wouldn't you do the honest thing? And he says, well, the buyer hasn't asked for a roof to be replaced, so we're not replacing the roof.
What does that mean for the new homeowner? Like,
well, the
that roof's
homeowner
been paid on very recently.
Right.
What is that going to put? What is that going to put them in predicament wise?
If their insurance did their due diligence, they're going to tell them their roof is not insured.
Okay.
So to get their roof insured now, that was a $32,000 claim. Once the homeowner realizes he's got to replace his roof, he's going to be paying $32,000 out of his house. You know, there's your housewarming gift, a bill for $32,000. That 16 of it sitting in this guy's pocket. Another 16,000 is sitting at the insurance company's account because it was never released because the work wasn't done.
Because they never had anything to pay on.
So both halves of that payment are waiting, and one robbed it here, the other one just gets it by default, and he's now having to pay it again.
And I'd assume insurance over time will just recant it back anyway. So like the insurance isn't going to lose anything either.
Nope.
But the seller walked away with $16,000, basically half of that roof, and now you as the future home buyer, when you realize, hey, it's leaking because guess what? We live in the Ozarks. We're going to get some hail. We're going to get some windstorms. That's going to happen here.
And the other sad reality, and I run into this, and it almost makes me cry sometimes, where this buyer, if their insurance didn't do due diligence and find out whether that claim had been worked, if the work had actually been done, they get a hailstorm, say 3 years down the road. These records are kept for 5 years. So they get a hail claim 3 years down the road, and they come out, they look at it, and they say, oh, yeah, you have hail damage, but you also have old hail damage here. Let's look at the records. Oh, this was paid for 3 years ago, and it was never done.
Ooh.
So we're
What
sorry.
happens then? Still not.
We're not going to pay a thing.
Ooh, ow. So you're the home buyer, and you've been there for 2-3 years, and you find out, hey, still not covered. But
and you paid for insurance.
You've
for
been
those 3
paying
years,
for insurance,
thinking it was covered. And on that one story in particular, you know, there was gutters, downspouts. You know, I think there was some siding on that one. Several different things that should have been replaced for these folks that they're going to have to do out of pocket, including that interior damage, which hasn't been replaced. My big concern on the interiors is if the workmanship isn't done and the repairs aren't done correctly, there's mold growing behind that drywall, and that's affecting the air you breathe. And you know, who knows how far that's spreading, and it's just
So with that knowledge, what is the best course of action from the roofer's standing or point of view in regards to, all right, I'm helping someone, we're buying a house, we've made an offer, that offer's been accepted. What steps the bank or their financing is obviously going to require an appraisal. Mm-hmm. They don't have to do an inspection at all. Like they can waive that up front if they want, which would be ill-advised. But what additional steps could be done, and what does that look like for the buyer from a roofer's perspective? Like, should they call and say, hey, my offer's been accepted, what do I do now? Like, what is the best opinion you have to best prepare that future homeowner, whether the roof needs to be replaced or not, to be in the best condition possible for that house?
Well, I would go for roof inspection, a roof-specific inspection. That would be one thing.
Versus just a home inspection.
Right.
Okay.
I would do both because you definitely need the home inspection as well.
You do.
And then I would look at that report and see what all is on there, just so I have knowledge of what it is. And sometimes, here's another situation I got into once. I would, as the buyer, I would mandate that my contractor does the work, because if the seller's contractor does the work, they know there's no warranty after it sells. They know they're not obligated to uphold anything because the person paying them is out of the deal. They're not going to call them. So I want to be sure that the work is done and you can be paid, either at closing, the contractor can be paid at closing, or in escrow if the work is done after closing. But the reason I would press for that is we've been on inspections before. We got on this one roof. There was an interior leak. This was not an insurance claim, but there had been an interior leak because of a poorly installed roof. And there had been items that were blown off of the roof, including a trim piece going up one side of the roof, and a couple different things. And so we presented that to the buyer and said, hey, these things need to be fixed. Here's what it's going to cost for us to do it. I don't remember. It was a steep roof. It was high. It was a little complex of a repair. I think it was about $500 or $800. And the seller came back and said, well, our roofer will do it for $200. And I told the buyer, I said, well, that's fine, but they're not repairing what we're repairing. What they're repairing is this obvious shingle that's missing, and they're not going to repair the interior, and they're not going to repair that because there's no way they're going to do all that work for $200.
Correct.
And so
there's a reason it's cheaper.
Yeah. So I drove by the week later after it was supposed to be done, and I called the buyer. I said, okay, I just want you to know, I can see from the highway or from the road as I drive by that this trim piece did not get replaced. And you might want to check on that interior. If they did change the interior, I don't see any of those other shingles that were leaking on the ridge get replaced. And they checked into it, and they called me 3 days later, and they said, you know what, we canceled the contract. We don't feel like they're being honest with us. We're going to find another house. That wasn't my wish,
No, but that's buyers, like, every step along the way. Like, if things aren't done the way and they need to be taken care of, the buyer has chances to step away from that transaction.
Sure.
And that's in the buyer's best interest because, like you said, if seller chooses to have contractor XYZ company that's been in town for 3 weeks, that's going to be gone in 3 weeks, come make a repair, they're not going to care if it's done well, nor does the seller if they're doing it for the cheap value. So definitely having someone that you can trust makes a huge difference.
And then if I'm having the roof replaced as the buyer, I'm going to want to pick the color.
Yes.
Because I'm going to live here for the next 10, 20 years. I'm going to look at it, not the seller. And I want to be sure, again, just like doing repairs, I want to be sure that I've got the right contractor who's going to stand by their work and be here down the line to do warranty if there is an issue. Or just to come back out and inspect it for me on occasion because we've got a relationship built. So as a buyer, you've got the leverage. One, they want your money.
Yeah, they want you to buy their house.
And if you get into a purchase situation and you find that there's hail damage on this roof and it needs to be replaced, I would not offer this off the bat, but sometimes you'll run into where the seller says, well, we're just selling it as is. We don't want to do an insurance claim. We don't want to have to pay a deductible. We've got a high deductible. We don't want to pay it. We don't want to deal with any of that. So sometimes to persuade them to go ahead and make this claim and help everybody out, including themselves, make this sale, say, you won't be any money out. I'll pay that deductible. You might have to put up $1,000 or something.
It's still getting you a brand new roof for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, if it saves you $15,000, $20,000, or $32,000.
And furthermore, it couldn't be, if it's prior damage and you take ownership, can you get it insured and covered?
Many times, no.
So, I mean, it needs to be resolved before you purchase. That way, it's good to go for the future, because if you don't and you need something done on it, your insurance is going to say that damage was 2 years old and you've been in that house 6 months.
Yep.
whether the seller made a claim or not, they're not going to cover it.
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen people do that before. They buy it and they say, "Well, let's file it on my insurance." And I bought it. It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
They've got records of when these storms happen, and if it didn't happen while you're under policy, they're not going to pay. I mean, I wouldn't if I ran the insurance company either. It just can't print money. So.
And with that, so at the end of the day, during the transaction, the roof should be looked at by a qualified roofer. And with that, you also should, if the roof needs to be replaced or anything needs to be done, potentially claim it on the current seller's insurance. That way it could be covered. But if, say, hypothetically, roof gets replaced a week before closing, what is the process to put any warranties that roof would have under that new homeowner?
I would definitely. That's why I'd be in conversation with that installer and say, "Hey, here's my information. Make sure that here's my
I'm taking ownership of it at this time. Can email, it be under me?
Make sure it's all tied to my identity."
Okay,
that's really helpful.
Realistically, 3 years down the line, you don't want to have to call up, "Hey, I bought your house 3 years ago. I think the roof's still under your name."
Exactly.
I don't know, Okay, so that's very easily manageable in that process.
Transferable. Yep.
Okay.
It is.
Cool. Well, with that, caveats, takeaways that I've got that I perceive is if you are looking at buying, and I would say looking at buying is not really is not as relevant, but if you're getting ready to make an offer, or more so once your offer's been accepted, do an inspection, home inspection, no questions asked. That has nothing to do with Branson Springfield Roof Co. Call a roofer and also have a actual roof inspection. Have someone that puts roofs on for a living on the roof, walking it, checking out everything, making sure that everything's going to be good, because it'll give you the peace of mind that the transaction, the market you're buying a house in now is more expensive than it's been ever in our area. So that's probably the biggest investment you're going to make in a while. Make sure the roof is sound, because you made a caveat before that houses have multiple systems that are expensive. HVAC, plumbing, roof. They all are $20,000, $30,000 ticket items. So if you can, obviously with HVAC and other things, it's not going to be as straightforward, but if the roof qualifies for a replacement through their homeowner's insurance, it would be advisable for both parties for you to walk into that house with a new roof. And you could help, if you have to advocate for it, if you have to help pay a deductible in the process, it would still be worth it versus getting stuck 2 years down the road when more damage comes. Because back to we're in the Ozarks and we get hail and we get winds, there's going to be roof damage. I'd assume almost every house sees hail at some point in this area.
Yep.
So then when you have that damage and they get up on your roof, there may be prior damage that wasn't replaced. Well, your insurance is not going to cover that. So it's for your best interests in the value of your home's best care to take care of that purchase. So
absolutely.
All right. So I always end with how and what is the best way to get a hold of Branson Springfield Roof Co. for all your roofing needs?
417-662-5246, which spells out 417-MO-CLAIM. And
that works.
An important point is not only do we inspect the roof, we've got many years of roofing experience to see if it's going to leak or whatever, but we also inspect for storm damage. So we do a lot of work with that. And a lot of installers can inspect a roof to make sure there's no leak potential, but not everybody's trained in what hail damage and wind damage an insurance company would buy. So
that and taking care of the full, your house as a full product, hail may have damaged the shingles, which is the high ticket item. The roof is the expensive part.
Right.
But if you need gutters, if you need siding, if you need
garage doors,
there's so many things that can be deemed up in that process. Yeah. I was saying window screens, all those things add up, even if it's only $500 additional to the claim. But if you could yet again, before you bought a house, or even if it's a storm that's happened after you own the home, if you could get all those things fixed at once, it's just better for your home. So
sure. And maybe we should tell them what we got in the...
Sure. Yeah. What are we drinking today?
I have got Cedar Creek coffee. This is the fresh blackberry.
Okay. And I am drinking a little Green Spot, little Irish whiskey. It is wonderful. Quick plug for Cedar Creek Coffee. It's my day job. I'm a real estate agent at night, and I'm a job coach during the day, working with Cedar Creek Coffee down in Branson. We employ individuals with special needs to roast and package coffee in Branson. It's a job that's for them and by them. And hopefully the coffee's good.
Absolutely.
I don't
Love
like
it.
coffee. I'll say it on camera. It makes it my job hard tasting wise. I would rather have whiskey all day, but the state seems to think that's not appropriate. But it is what it is. So again, thank you, Daniel Koren. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns about anything with your roof, give them a call. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Whiskey Talk with Drew. Hope that this week's episode was beneficial. As always, here on the channel, we are looking for new guests to share their industries and looking to help others reach their real estate goals. If that is you, please contact me.